Hey, oh wow, that got quiet when I closed the door, didn't it? All right. All right. Thank you all so much to coming to my session on OKRs. Um, who in the room has heard of OKRs before? How many people have been to a talk or a workshop on OKRs before? Anybody take one from Marty Kagan? Okay. Who's doesn't really matter, I was just interested. So who is using OKRs actively in their organization today? How's it going? No, just kidding. Yeah, right. Yeah, so-so, or maybe not. So let me do some quick introductions. I'm Holly Bielawa. I have a whole intro slide. Maybe just get to that. I'm partnered with Jeff Patton. I have my own company, Digital Product Partners. If any of you, yeah, and I'm trying to work some workshop elements into this. It's 45 minutes, so it's going to be kind of challenging to do that, but heck, you know what the heck? They don't want to just hear me talk the whole time, right? So, why are my slides not advancing? Here we go. Am I recording? And I'm trying to tether myself in this general area. I got asked to record this. I know nothing about recording anything, so I asked Dawn to help me. So I'm hoping there are some seats up front too. So yeah, I'm Holly Bielawa. I'm originally from Ohio, lived overseas. I live in Ypsi now, so I'm local. So feel free to reach out if you like the talk, or if you didn't and you want to complain about how, we'll have lunch and talk about how my talk sucked, fine. But most people don't know that I had my own startup in the late 90s. So I come from startup world. I launched products, did early product market fit for several companies, launched an Arabic OCR in Dubai in 2005 using things like OKRs, even though we weren't calling them that. Then I started working with larger companies trying to get this stuff going. My company is called Digital Product Partners, but it's a DBA of revenue growth consultants when I was doing startup coaching, agile growth strategies when I started working with larger organizations, and digital product partners since a lot of people are on a digital path. So my company's been around since 2008, and I partner with Jeff Patton. Who knows who that guy is? Anybody? Yeah, he wrote the user story mapping book in 2014. People still have copies of it, dog-eared and whatever. He does talks and workshops. My part of the organization helps implement the stuff that comes out of the trainings that he does. So if you're interested, if you're a big fan, talk to me and we can get Jeff in or bring him in locally, sponsored or something if you want to do a training like that. Anyway, let's kind of get into what this is, or the agenda of the day. I don't know why this mouse is giving me trouble. Okay, so it's going to be a fast 45 minutes. I've already introduced myself. We're going to talk about where OKRs come from, what a good OKR is, how do you create an OKR, and then what about organizational readiness for OKRs, which is what a lot of people miss. And then we'll just do some questions if we have time. All right, so who do we have to thank for OKRs? Anybody know who this guy is? This is Yeah, Andy Grove. So Andy Grove was a Hungarian immigrant who changed his name to Grove to sound more American. He was the third employee at Intel, and then he became the CEO of Intel. And it's from Intel that we get the idea of OKRs. So when he was CEO, he introduced that at Intel. And then in 1983, so that was in the 70s, people. That was in the 70s that he introduced that. Then he wrote a book called High Output Management, which I thought was funny because in my business, in what we do, we talk about outcomes over output all day long. Who's heard outcomes over output? Like, it's one of those things that we talk about, right? But his book was High Output Management. So it wasn't really popularized yet. But then John Doerr, who was a sales guy at Intel, who went to a class that Andrew Doerr did on OKRs, he went out to Google, and Google was really who popularized this idea of objectives and key results. So although people use the acronym all the time, OKR, like, let's keep in mind these are objectives and key results. Let's not forget that Marty Kagan, who was brought up at the keynote this morning by somebody who's also in this session, I spent 4 years running a product transformation at Bloomberg in New York. While I was there, Marty came in and spoke about OKRs, and I'm not kidding you. 2 weeks later, they started putting OKRs in people's management reviews and eval process. On Wikipedia, it's like the do's and don'ts of OKRs. That's one of the don'ts of OKRs. Don't put them in people's evals, right? So it is very tempting to say we're going to implement OKRs across the organization and all line up and row in the same way. If you were sitting in the keynote from Melissa this morning, you know, obviously there's a lot of moving parts to this. You can see when you look at her book, all the different moving parts to implementing OKRs. I'm going to try to be really practical. One of the things that we like to do is help people implement. So I'm going to be as practical as I can with you about like what OKRs really are. You don't have to call them OKRs when you go home after this talk. Remember, you don't have to call them OKRs. I called them success criteria for a long time. And then someone said, do you mean OKRs? And I'm like, I guess, you know, but so it really is, and at the end of the day, being able to prioritize, but people don't understand what OKRs really are. So yeah, because things have changed since the 80s. Fun fact, right? All right. Oh, another cute thing was that one of the quotes from Andrew Dorr is, a corporation is a living organism. I know it's really hard to read from the back. Like I was in a session earlier, I'm like, oh my God, what? You know, I need binoculars. So I'll read it to you. A corporation is a living organism. It has to continue to shed its skin. Methods have to change. Focus has to change. Values have to change. The sum total of those changes are transformation. So Andrew Dorr knew that an organization always has to be changing. I think the Agile community, and we talk about agility now, this is kind of what we're talking about, but how the heck do we get that going in organizations? And OKRs sound really great. And in fact, leaders really love the whole idea of OKRs because they seem really simple. And you know, I had to change my presentation after the keynote this morning. Not in a bad way, but I was like, oh, God, I need to change a couple things. So anyway, so let's just do a primer on these. Some people, so OKRs are supposed to help us move to strategy and results organizationally and product-wise, and away from just jumping right to a solution. That's what they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to allow teams to own their results as well. They should help us prioritize our work and get the value, right, and decide what the value is we're going to deliver. So when I was talking about success criteria, that's what I was talking about, right? So real quick, so for those of you who are using OKRs in your organization, do you think that you've gotten some incremental gains from using them? Yeah, yeah. Not, you know, don't expect like incredible results day one. Don't make big mistakes. And like you can get some, but you know, they're anchored in around a problem, not a solution. This is the problem with them in a lot of cases, is like people love to talk about solutions and their ideas for solutions instead of really dig into the problem. They're qualitative. The objectives are, okay, so that's the thing, like objectives are qualitative, like it's kind of what we want. They can be inspiring. They show value, you know, oh, that's right, you guys can't read in the back. They don't prescribe a solution at all, ever. And they can be inspirational, but they're not just vague metric or feature or solution. Where like that sounds like if we build this thing, that's success, right? We're successful if we deliver this feature by this time. That's not an OKR. So the results they're observable and measurable and they're quantitative. That's the different about the key results. Who's using KPIs? So some people are using KPIs. I worked with organizations, like I was working with a global telecom recently that implemented KPIs, but they didn't have OKRs, which I thought was weird because your KPIs should be helping you see if you're going towards your OKRs. We'll talk more about that later, but It's weird how people implemented KPIs and without an eye to OKRs, but it's happening. They're outcome based, and really they shouldn't be too many of them. So they're observable. The key results are not like, they're also not the solution. They're not the work that needs to be done, and they're also not a feature. So those are the common things that people think about OKRs, or they'll just jump to the solution. When Melissa was talking about the discovery or analytics or data or things like that, that's why that lack of availability of data, we can be controversial or whatever about, Melissa, but the fact is, if you don't have the data, if you don't have the clearing to do the research and the discovery, you can end up really sideways with your OKRs, because it's just like I gave you little cheat sheets there for thinking about. But people, I've worked at Ford, so one of my clients early on was Ford. Fill it out. It's just check box. It's a template. So everybody says fill out the template. They fill it out. They're like, I did my OKR, and we'll talk about that more too. Anyway, so at this point, can I go back? Will you let me go back? I'm not going to belabor this slide, but this slide is sort of an idea of what OKRs can look like, but there's a difference between business OKRs and product OKRs. So when you look at the OKRs, there should be 3 levels of OKRs. I think there are possibly more than that, but there should be 3 levels. There should be the business OKRs. This is according to the thing, right? So there should be the business OKRs, really I would say product OKRs, and then there should be team level OKRs. So you could say those are, business, strategy, and team, depending on how you're set up organizationally. But business OKRs, here's how you tell the difference between a business OKR and a product OKR. A business OKR is about us, about what we want. We want to dominate the market in this certain way. We want to raise revenue. We want to save money. Usually involves money, and it's about what we want. So all of these that you see, like they're examples of business OKRs, you can rattle them off really easily. Can anybody name like what you think would be a business OKR for your company? Whatever, we'll do an activity later. We don't put you on the spot yet. Okay. So, but when it comes to talking about product OKRs, those are talking about our customers and users, and this is one of the reasons that it's so hard. So I'm going to go into product OKRs in depth, because a lot of you will go back home and just go like, ugh, okay. So first of all, what's a product? Anybody? Come on. And something you're selling, something that delivers value. Anybody else? Something that helps you solve a problem. All right, so those are all perfectly fine answers. In organizations, what we're finding out is this is a complicated landscape. You heard Melissa talk about current state. There's no shock, we are all kind of singing from the same song sheet. Well, I've been doing this a while, but this is the main issue that I see in the market right now with the companies that I'm talking to, and that is kind of anything can be a product. Sometimes we don't even charge money for it, right? But it gives value to some. It depends on what we're trying to do as a company. But we need to understand the problem with product OKRs and products in general. So we got to understand them from the outside back in. We can't just be navel gazing and understand products, right? They're from the outside in. And I went to Joel. Is Joel in here? I saw, okay, yeah. Thank you for not being visible so you don't make me nervous. Anyway, I was at Joel's session earlier, and he was talking about this too. It's like, what's the context of the user? Like, it's important for everybody in the company to know these things. So we base products, features, capabilities, all of that we got to understand them from the outside in. And when we do that, we're talking about, for those of you in the back that can't see, 2 main groups. Those are customers and users. Not everybody is selling business to customer. Some people are selling B to C. Some people are selling through partnerships. I'm working with a company in Australia right now that swears they can't get a hold of a user or a customer because they sell through resellers. So we've got to try to convince them that yes, they can, and they're doing a cloud migration that they thought would take. This is a founder-led company that's $100 million a year company, and they can't get to their users, they feel. And they were doing a cloud migration that they thought would take 2 years, and they're on year 5 of it. I mean, that's that's on the small side, founder-led company. Crazy stuff. But anyway, we have to be talking to our customers and users, have customer user data. But what you kind of think is the customer who chooses to pay us, they're the ones that determine the value proposition. The fact is, there are also, users that determine the value proposition, because they're using the thing, and if they hate the thing, then that can get back to the customer, and then you're in trouble. But the fact is, it can be more complicated in your marketplace than just you're trying to sell to a customer. You can be trying to sell to a customer and then have users use it. A lot of people are in that spot. Okay, so as an example, anybody here use Jira? Anybody have used Jira? Yeah, just about everybody. It's so dominant now. Who in your organization bought Jira? Management bought Jira. Why do you think they bought that? They think that it will help the company bring value. They want to see things, so they want transparency maybe. That's where I've mostly seen it used. They may think that, they may be sold on that. I haven't seen a ton of that in Jira, like actually it helping bring value to the market. But, I have seen it used for reporting and gauging how fast teams can build code and stuff like that. So what happens if all of you people who are using Jira for your organization don't use it? Does the customer, does the actual buyer get any value out of it? No. So I've worked with a couple of companies that sold really hard and then just like sold a bunch and then a subscription model, and they just died on this, but I can't belabor it. I only have 45 minutes and I probably am down to 30 now. Okay. So the actual punchline here is that so how many people in the room is software is your business? Software, you're selling software, some kind of software. I got a few people in the front. But most people, that's not what they're actually selling. So you have end customers and users, but you also have technology products. So what you sell and how you make money as an end product, that's an end product, all right? But your technology is still products, and this is kind of a new thing. So I'm always excited to share the slide because people are not thinking about this. We did, like when people set up Agile teams, they're like, we need a product owner, right? And then it's like, you jerks, you're not even a product. And we're finding out, oh, wait a minute, no, actually, these are products. So you have customer enabling products like websites, like mobile, like other products that customers use to get to your products. You're going to want it. This whole slide builds, so you might want to wait to take a picture. I'm just saying. There are employee enabling products, the much maligned employee enabling products. So call centers, branches. So the actual customers and users can come from the levels above this. You have partner enabling. So Amazon is a good example of a partner enabling product. We call vendors partners, right? And then you have a mixture of types, which is just a bummer, but it's a fact. And then you have product team enabling products. So, and those product teams need to understand end users and customers to be able to build their product for those users and customers. So we kind of call this the onion of despair or something like that, because the further the more layers you pull back, the smellier it is and the harder it is to get attention of anybody. On the other hand, it's easier to get work done in some ways because you don't have the eye of leadership and stuff on you, and you can make decisions. And so when I'm talking about working from the outside in, what I'm saying is you need to know how your end products are enabled by your other software products. And I forgot ops is in here somewhere. Where's ops? There's ops. So product ops too, that is, like Melissa was saying, is sort of like a whole platform to help other companies, or I'm sorry, to help other product teams easily get a hold of that data. So most organizations, as I see on this slide, for those in the back, most organizations are not agreed on, organized around, or sometimes aware of their entire product landscape. So this is the product OKR conundrum. If you are not set up in product teams, or you don't know that you're not set up in product teams, then it's going to be really hard for you to implement product OKRs. It's going to sometimes require reorganizing the teams, which everybody hates doing for reasons. So, yeah. So know that there's regardless of how your teams are set up, there's a product hierarchy, and that product hierarchy can be traced all the way back. And like I was saying in Joel's talk, he was talking about doing this from the inside out, which if you have a going product, you can look in the data and figure out how customers are reacting. And like if you can make that data available too, so that everybody understands it in regular like business terms, then you can be incredibly helpful. So I'm hoping like we have some engineers in the room, engineering in the room, maybe a couple people. Yeah, like you can be super helpful with pushing this stuff forward. I've seen that happen. I've even seen a lot of heads of engineering become CEOs now because I don't know, for reasons, problem solving and such. Okay, so now we're going to do a little activity. So there's a company excited about its new paint formulation that they have in development, and they're going to start selling this paint formulation in 2025. So what has to happen for them to be able to sell? And this is just obviously a mock-up, right? But what has to happen? Well, they have to have the new paint formulated. They have to scale it for production. They have to ship it for distribution. It has to be available to buy. People have to know how to buy the paint. And then this is the fun one that I like, which is as somebody needs to know the paint's available. They have to want the new paint. They have to get the new paint. They want to have to buy, like they want to be able to see it, and they have to be able to access it, and then finally people buy paint. So I have the activity, but I'm going to cut it a little short and focus just. So what is a business OKR here? Yeah, just in the back. Yeah, so that's good. It's supposed to be that it's metriced. So you would say by how much paint you'd want to sell, or something along those lines. And you can see. So we'll talk about this after the activity. You can see a lot of stuff has to happen, right? So here's the activity. It's just 5 minutes. You don't have to do the business OKR, but just at your tables, discuss and figure out 2 product OKRs that would support that business OKR. Okay? You understand the assignment? You have a little worksheet that can help you there, right? We'll talk about the learning plan, but you can use that product OKR worksheet to help you. Thank you, dear. Thank you. I'm keeping it for time. Okay. I can't see. No, I can see the time on the front. Oh, why isn't it letting me go back? Oh, one moment. That's one. Okay. A little cheat here is to talk about the product type first. before you start talking about the OKR, that can help. Getting the product type, knowing what product type you're talking about before you figure out the OKR. You get it? Understand what I'm saying? Maybe. Okay. Okay, anybody ready to call Uncle on this already? You making progress or no? All right. Okay. I'm gonna call time on this activity because I think it's a really hard one. And I hear people spinning around talking about a bunch of different things. So that's good. Probably didn't feel good. Probably didn't feel good, but it just gives you an example of how hard it is to even figure out what the product is because you're not talking about your end product, right? The business OKR is basically selling this new paint formulation. This is a small business OKR, and figuring out how to come up with a product OKR out of that is really not very easy, even though it might be, right? So it can be as simple as, we need a employee enabling product to make sure that the paint can be formulated. So we have a chemist working on that, and we need software that will enable the chemist. So we're successful if we can get 5 lead pigments within the next 3 months to get the paint formulated. So it can be really, really simple. I know that because I worked on this type of project before. One of the things we were talking about at our table is like, what's the value proposition here? Like, why do we need it? Yes, yeah. So cool. All of those conversations you should be having before you decide you're going to sell a new paint. Right? So yeah, so really who needs another paint formulation? Why? You don't have enough detail to figure that out, but that's practically the whole game, is to question, why are we doing this in the first place? Why do we need a paint formulation in the first place? That is, better hope your board and your executive team is like actually thinking about these things before they send you on a mission. Yeah. So I have a slide later, so I'm just trying to decide whether to say I'll answer this later. I think that this is very difficult to do. So let me get through a couple. I mean, I don't want to run out of time because I want to answer your question. But let me just say this, that when you're coming up with product OKRs, and you have that sheet, and I have extra ones you can take home with you today to look at how to talk about product OKRs. I have seen large organization after large organization have things like a little on your badge, like here are the CEO initiatives, and they're all never OKRs, so they're never measurable. They're like feel good things, and then they go straight to every single project that we're doing. It was argued based on those 10 CEO objectives, and then it's just like, how many projects can we shove in there that are tied to that? So that's that's feel good stuff. Like that is mission, that should be mission level things or like vision level things of like who we are. Where I've been a director of transformation and product stuff, and it was always like, okay, that's not going to be super helpful, but it's cute, it's nice. But then when everybody's planning, it's who is close enough to the CEOs. Yeah, I could go on, but it's very difficult when your leadership doesn't understand it. It's almost like you need to understand this as a thing and push it up. Like I'm saying, it can be pushed from engineering back out. It can be pushed middle layer back in. You can get closer to this, and you may have to be the one that introduces it in nice ways to your leaders. But we're really, when we're talking about business OKRs, they're really driven by the product OKRs. People say, well, what about marketing? Melissa would talk about product operations. I say everybody should be either sort of a product team or a platform team that is supporting those product teams. So that's management and HR and marketing and all of this. They should all be supporting. But when we're talking about it, just to introduce the language that we use is we want something to be valuable for the customer, and we want it to be usable for the user, and we want to make money from it, and we don't want to break the bank building it. So those are kind of the 4 areas of product thinking. This is why when you're talking about the OKRs going from strategy down, this is the biggest hole we see is going straight from business OKRs straight to solution. And talking about these things, it's a cross-functional thing to be doing. And because that's a cross-functional thing to be doing, it's very difficult in the hierarchy. But just to give you a couple of examples of product OKRs, this is a template. There's one at the top of your sheet to that product OKR sheet. We believe that if we do a certain thing, that users will, or customers, well, it can be users or customers. I split them out because it happens so often that they're different. So the users will do something, and then the customers will do something, and we'll get something back. So an example, the Amazon example I like is, like, we believe if we add a buy now button, that users will buy more products and vendors will sell more, and that'll increase revenue by 20%. True story, man. Like, I got to tell you, that buy now button, whenever do I put anything in the cart anymore? And that cart was around for a long time before the buy now button. And did it work? I think so. And then this one was actually, this other one was an employee enabling product. We believe if we provide credit scores to customer service reps, that they'll be able to assess risk of clients. So low risk clients will begin trading immediately, and that'll result in increased trading revenue. Yeah. So like there are a lot of different ways that companies come up with what they think. Usually, so the OKR guideline is they should not really be achievable. It's something that I don't particularly think is nice to do to people, is to make them constantly feel like they're failing by saying, well, we knew you could only get to 50%, or it's supposed to be 70%, I think is the OKR rule, 75% achievable. So sometimes that is, the very best guess, but you're just giving away this part, which is these are only hypotheses. This is why you don't want to use a template. You're just doing this all day long, aren't you? You're just like leading the witness all day long. Anyway, so that's right, just trouble. So these are only hypotheses that need to be tested, just like our table up here was saying, well, do we really need a new paint formulation? Once we get these, this is why it's good to have people involved and products ops and data. A lot of times they're PowerPoints, so 10 minutes. So sad. Anyway, at least I'm sad about it, but we'll see. So I wanted to mention though, in this financial credit score example, this is a true example of an architect who had an idea for a data lake. And he was so frustrated because he'd been talking about this data lake for 2 years, And everybody in leadership was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. And so we did this 2-day strategy session. And as it turns out, he didn't know that the persona that he was going for was a customer service rep. He didn't know it was a customer enabling product he was talking about. This is a long time ago, so of course he didn't know. But what happened was we found out that this was a big idea because people got charged per trade back then. And so if somebody called and said, I've got $60,000 and I'd like to start trading, the customer service rep had to say, you know, that's really awesome. So we'll take your $60,000 and when it clears in 3 days, then we'll let you trade, which is not a great answer for somebody who's got a high credit score and very low risk. So this platform made it so that in line, the customer service rep could see they were working with someone low risk and let them start trading immediately. And like, what was it, $2.50 a trade or something back then. So that was a great, I mean, it got funded. Like he presented the results of that and it got funded and they built it. So that's true story. That was pretty awesome. I was pretty happy about that one. But that was a key result. Oh, so let me go back there if this thing will. Ugh. Yeah. So when you're looking at the whole statement, that's like an OKR statement. So it has an objective. So this a product OKR though, right? And then the key result would be the 20% revenue. So, but yes, you should have data to back. You have to have data to back you up with this, or research to back you up. This is why we like, Teresa Torres' book. We talk about this too a lot, which is how are you going to enable the research and the discovery you need to do to make sure you're not. And it's all a circle, right? It's all recursive. Like you got to go back. Joel talked about that too. You have to know what you want in the future, build something, and then figure out how to adjust, which is the hardest. But Andrew Grove said that in the what 80s, late 70s, you got to adjust, and you have just it's harder and harder to do that. So one other yay, all right. So we have been discussing, but I'm just bringing this back. So do you notice how everybody likes to talk about that? Like when all you want to see is that you sold this paint formulation in 2025, right? That's the thing. That's a lagging indicator. So here's the other big problem with it is like there are all of these are basically, did the paint ship, right? Is the paint actually available to buy? Can people actually buy the thing? Those are all leading indicators. And no one likes to do the work to come up with, okay, then your KPIs can be based on current day usage, right? And you can like monitor those things. But you should be looking at what are the indicators that you're headed towards people actually buying the paint in your realm. And so those are the leading indicators that are so important. Anybody spend any time talking about leading indicators? Yeah, a few, yes. The usual suspects that I know. But this is not easy, and they're usually facilitated conversations. So my advice to you is I've taught a lot of classes on facilitation, like internally was when I was inside companies as a director. But facilitation skills are important. So if you can get a hold of a facilitation class, you're already at a conference, so you're already leading it by showing up here. So facilitation skills are important. Yeah. Do you create a list of leading indicators and turn them into objectives? If you're set up in product teams, then those could be like, but if you look at it, the people formulating the paint are not the same people that are building an application to buy the paint online, for example, right? So you have to be careful about that because if you're not set up in product teams, you'll be looking at chaos to do that. Yeah. So, But keep in mind, this is user story mapping. If anybody gets that book, that's kind of all about how to do that too. Not to pitch Jeff's book, but I do partner with the dude. So, and okay, so do you remember the product types? I've thrown a lot at you. Yeah. So this is a recent class public class that we did, and this was a mural. This is a remote class, and this is a picture of what type of products. I won't make you answer today, but what products people in the virtual room, were working on. You can see that it's a very complicated landscape of products and overlap and intersects and very little product team enabling. Like it's sort of like we don't just enable our product teams. We also so be careful. One of the things that Melissa said was, focusing on personas is important. It really is important to know who you're building for and what they're trying to do, because you can really muddy it up. Anybody know Standish report, 80% of features are seldom, rarely, or never used. There's so much data around not building the right things. Also, because we're not set up in product teams in a lot of organizations, duplicate work. It makes me gag a little bit to see how many companies are set up by market, and so they duplicate all of their software. They're basically the same user process, but for different markets. Work for an insurance payer who was set up in markets instead of, I don't know, value streams and users, like how users were using it. They were duplicating a lot of software and then maintaining all that software. Bad news. But anyway, this just gives you an idea of how complicated the situation is when you're talking about product OKRs and you have multiple users and multiple business goals. Yeah, it's complicated, but it's doable. So this is kind of, when you're talking about product thinking, this is kind of how product teams should be set up. And guess what? Your product team is bigger than 7 to 10 people. Okay? 2 minutes? Okay. All right. Get your picture and then I'll move on. So we need outcome and impact-based metrics, which are OKRs to begin with, but they're not enough, right? OKRs are, I'm going to say that one more time. OKRs are not enough. They are not enough. They're a good start, but they're not enough to get implementable by a team. You really need the product OKRs to do that, and then you need the leading and lagging indicators as well, right? So before somebody can push the buy now button, they also have to search and find what they want, right? So if there's a problem searching and finding what they want. Current state also really important. That was another thing that Melissa said. Companies don't know their current state of product. Okay, so OKRs do allow for understanding what success is, what good looks like, what awesome looks like. It gives us an alternative to just funding project after project after project and trying to shove stuff in the pipeline. It gives us a good alternative to that. It helps us determine what actual outcomes and awesomeness is, instead of just going on when are we going to get it, when are we going to get something, when are we going to get a feature, when are we going to get a feature. Great alternative to that. It's just complicated. And okay, so gosh, I'm out of time, but this is the other thing that I think you mentioned a little bit, which was, we're working in a hierarchy usually, and then we have this hierarchy, and people worry about their career progression. So don't go home and make everybody mad, and also try to make it so the user and the customer is actually in the conversation instead of just talking to ourselves about what to do and what we want. That's why business OKRs are so much easier than product OKRs. And then just to say, the product hierarchy in technology, a lot of leadership doesn't understand their products. And now we have another silo, which is called product. Please try not to have your company do this one, which is create a whole nother chief product officer and a whole hierarchy underneath that, where now it's even harder to collaborate. I've seen big financials do this and a couple of other companies, like just say, okay, well now product makes sure everything goes right. No, that's not how it works. And since it's just 1 minute, so this is just practical tips. Take the worksheets home. They're good for starting the conversation. If you want a digital version, just hit me up. I'm happy to send you one. If there's a willing leader who has budget, then start there about what you learned. It's okay to start. It's OKR. It's okay to start from the middle up. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple. So here's some books. So Jeff's book, Melissa's book, Escaping the Build Trap, Inspired and Empowered are really good. Continuous Discovery Habits, which is the Teresa Torres book, is also really good. Hi, Tom. So those are all books that I would recommend. I'm trying to write a book. So far, not going great, but stay tuned. Maybe next year I have something. We'll see. And with that, I will say thank you very much. I appreciate you all.